I mentioned, just one, two more masail before we move on to the bab of hayd. ويجوز المسح على الجبائر وإن شد على غير وضوء, and Masah is permissible upon bandages even though he ties it without wudu. Okay, uh, Jabair, it comes on the same scale of like how you get Kabiratun and Kabair, Jabiratun and Jabair, right? So it is permissible to make Masah upon the bandages even though a person tied it without wudu. So normally what we know, we understand when you want to wear the khuf, right? First you must wash your feet, and after you wash your feet, you complete your wudu. Or you don't complete your wudu, but you put your khuf on as long as you, your hadith only comes after your wudu breaks, right? So somebody might misunderstand and think, look here, if you put on a bandage or a plaster of Paris or any or a splint or whatever, if you put it on without washing the limb, it will not be valid. So no, here it is valid, and the reason is pretty simple. There is this. I told you, Sahib Hidayah always brings a uh, عقلي دليل and an عقلي دليل. The نقلي دليل is لأن عليه السلام فعل ذلك. Nabi Sassam done the exact same thing. He made a masta upon a bandage without washing that limb first, right? And then وَأَمَرَ عَلِيًا بِهِ, and also he commanded Ali, maybe as Ali radiallahu ta'ala also had a problem, and then he also told him that you can put the bandage and you make masa after that. So that is the naqli dalil, that is the logical proof, right? ولأن الحجر فيه ولأن الحرج فيه فوق الحرج في نفس الخف. This is the logical proof. They say, look here, what is the reason why in Sharia you are allowed to make masa upon your khuf? Because there's difficulty, cold weather, take the hoof off, remove the hoof, wash your feet. So there, because of difficulty, you are allowed to make masa upon your hoof. And here a bandage that has a wound on. Sometimes maybe you got a gaping wound, you got a bleeding wound, you got a rash that is giving pus off, etc. So to take that bandage off, or like maybe you broke your arm. Imagine if you broke your arm, every time you have to take the plaster of Paris off and you have to wash your arm and you have to re-put the plaster of Paris on. There's a great deal of difficulty in that. So you can see, so when Shariat allows you not to take the hoof off because of the difficulty in taking the hoof off, then to a greater extent, to a much greater extent, Shariat will allow you not to take the bandage off and just make masa upon the hoof. Are you with me? I mean, sorry, to make masa upon the bandage. So understood it logical. That's the what we term as the dalil aqli, right? Then so he's saying fakana awla fi shara'il mas'i. So if what I said the difficulty of making remove the khuf was a valid proof for not removing the khuf, fakana awla, then it will be more worthy that you don't have to, or more likely or more permissible bi shara'il mas'i, with establishing masa for a bandage, right? ويكتفي بالمسح على أكثرها. Now it's interesting, Masla, here. Look here, normally when you wash your limb, right? When you say, for instance, this is my arm, right? I have to wash the whole arm. I have to wash from the fingertips right to the elbows, isn't it? And then we also done this here in the Babul Tayammum, like in washing, like in the ghusl, you have to wash the whole arm. Here also in Tayammum, you have to make masa of the whole arm. You strike your hand on the dust, on the earth, on the dirt, whatever, and then you have to cover every hair on your arm in tayammum, like how you do in ghusl, right? So now it will come to your mind. Now this thing will come to you. Oh, so that would mean also that you have to make masa on the whole bandage, but no, it is not necessary. They're clarifying. وَيَكْتَفِي بِالْمَسِّ عَلَى أَكْثَرِهَا. It will be sufficient that you make masa upon the greater portion of the band aid, of the bandage. So as long as so you got a wound, right? It's on your arm here, for example. So it's just see, that's your arm, right? So you got maybe on this portion here, you got a bandage. So that portion that you can wash it, you'll wash it, right? And this portion where the bandage is, you can't wash it. So long as you cover the greater area, which is 50% or more, and make masa, that is sufficient, right? That is sitting. ويكتفي بالمسح على أكثرها, right? ذكره الحسن, right? Yeah, they say when they say Hassan, they say Hassan bin Ziyad. Now I told you, before, this is now your iftar lesson for you. that all the riwayat that Imam Muhammad narrated from Imam Abu Hanifa and Imam Yusuf, and he recorded in the usul, that is the Zahir riwayat, which is the default what? This is the default fatwa in the Hanafi madhab. But sometimes some other students of Imam Abu Hanifa mentioned like Hassan bin Ziyad, Zufar bin Zuhail, Yaqub, etc. Their riwayat that they have recorded in their books, this is termed as the Nawadir. What is it? Nawadir. So, um, yes, uh, if something is mentioned in the Zahir riwayat, that is the six main books, right? That will be the default fatwa. And within that also, the default for fatwa will be on Imam Al Hanifa's qawl, especially in the ibadat, etc. Right? Yes, there are instances we showed yesterday also where the fatwa was on Sahibain's qawl for making Masah upon a sock, a cotton sock that holds all the conditions. So there are instances where the fatwa will shift. The fatwa will shift from Imam Abu Hanifa, and the fatwa will go to who? The fatwa will go to Sahibain. And then this one thing. And another thing is where there's no clarity, even there's no mention, there is no mention of anything in the Nawadir, right? Sorry, in the Usul, and there is some mention in the Nawadir, then also we'll take it because although it's not of the highest category like the Nawadir, which is Ziyadat, Jamul Saghir, Jamul Kabir, Siyal Saghir, Siyal Kabir, Ziyadat, there's no mention of it. So we'll take it even it comes from the Nawadi, right? Then, like how now, we discussed about Masah al Khuf, you can make for 24 hours, you can make for 72 hours. So now you think yourself also there is also some type of restriction with regards to time restriction. Or it's time restricted. So in the next Ibadah time, it says, Wala, you got yutawakkatu or yutawakkatu there? Majhul. ولا يتوقت لعدم التوقيف بالتوقيت. So this will not be restricted لعدم التوقيف because of not being restricted with any time. That's what is in simple what they're saying there. The Sharia does not put any restriction that once you got a bandage, you got a cast on your arm, or you got a bad rash which are oozing pus. If you put water on there, if you get exposed to water, it's going to get more, it's going to fester. So you're allowed to Allah Ta'ala protect us, you're allowed to put a bandage on. So since Sharia didn't put any type of restriction, this is unrestricted. As long as that uzr, the excuse, or as long as that need to have that bandages there, you can continue making Masah, right? Then next Masah, وإن سقطت الجبيرة عن غير برء لا يبطل المسح. What is saying here, sometimes maybe the bandage falls off. Maybe with the passing of time, the bandage becomes slack, it becomes weak, it falls off. So if the bandage, look at the scenario here, right? Um, you had a genuine excuse to put a bandage. Remember, I told you, I mentioned this several times. You just got a paper cut or you got a small, now you want to put a big plaster, you don't want to make wudu. That's not real inconvenience. That won't delay the healing process. Although nowadays they say, if you get a cut, must keep it open. When you put a plaster, it becomes wet, it becomes damp, it even becomes worse. It takes longer to heal. But okay, that's a separate subject. But Um, so what he's saying is, you had a genuine excuse. You had a genuine excuse to put a plaster. You had a genuine excuse to put what's this a bandage, whatever, right? And then you put it on, right? And then you're making Masah. But say, for instance, maybe that. So just like take this example, you had a plaster of Paris, like the old style, which you had. So now you made Masah, right? Now you went to the doctor, right? And he was checking the bandage. So, okay, not that you went to the doctor, sorry, wrong question. Just that thing became weak, not weak, it became pump and fell off. وَإِنْ سَقَطِ الْجَبِيرَةُ عَنْ غَيْرِهِ. And when the bandage came off, you see, hey, the wound is not healed. I still need this bandage on. I still need a bandage. So you had a wound there, you had a boil there, so the bandage fell off. The bandage fell off. And now you're checking, you say, but the thing still need a bandage. And you put the bandage back on. You put the bandage back on because it was still necessary. لا يبطل المسح. The Masah is still valid. You don't, like how you took your khuf off for whatever reason, your tongue was itching, whatever, you took your khuf off, and now you check, hey, you want to put your khuf back on because the removing of the khuf, you have to wash your feet again and put the khuf back on. But yeah, if you remove or rather the bandage fell off, and the excuse that necessitated it, the bandage in the first place is still there. All you have to do is just put the bandage back on. You don't even have to repeat your masa. Why? لأن الأذر قائم. Because the the excuse that warranted the need for the bandage is still there. So you can still use, right? والمسح عليك الغسل. Because remember, for you, uh, the masa was like a ghasal. It's like washing, right? Ghusl is bath, ghasal is washing. So wal masu alayha kal ghasli, washing was, okay, making masa was like washing. So like if you washed it, so that means the washing is still on the bandage, and that is still valid. Are you with me? Wal masu al ghasli, right? Lima tahta. So when you made masa over the bandage, as though you washed what was beneath it, so the hadith which was beneath it was removed, right? Ma dama uzru baqiyan, as long as the excuse still remains. Are you with me? Right. But وإن سقطت عن برع بطل لزوال أذري. Right. So look at the next one. You had a boil, you had a sore, you had a wound that warranted and a uh, necessitated a bandage. So you put a bandage on, etc. Now this thing fell off, and when it fell off, you see, hey, but this wound is now healed, right? This wound is healed. There's no need for the bandage anymore, right? That there's not a valid excuse to wear this bandage anymore. So in saqatat adburin batala biziyawa. So the uzr that allowed you to make masa in the first place is not there anymore. So uh, you'll have to now wash your arm, wash your leg, whatever, to such an extent. وَإِنْ كَانَ فِي الصَّلَاةِ اسْتَقْبَلَ. If you were in salat and your bandage fell, you had an excuse, you put a bandage, you made masah, you were reading your salah, and during the course of salah, the bandage fell off, and in salah somehow or the other, you say, hey, this bandage fell off, and my wound is healed now, or my wound has been healed. Now you'll have to restart your salah. They say, وإن كان في استقبل. Why? لأنه قدر على الأصل. Because now he's able to do the original. What's the original? To wash, right? لأنه قدر على الأصل قبل حصول المقصود, before having completed his salah بالبدل. So he was now completing salah with a substitute. So why must you complete your salah with a substitute when you can have the original? Why settle for the substitute? Yes, if your salat was complete, it's a different story. But here your salat is not complete. So in other words, simple was saying, why complete your salat with a substitute when you have the original? You understood that? Okay, Alhamdulillah, that brings us to the end of that chapter. Allah Ta'ala accept it. If anything was not clear, you can message on the app, whatever. But we tried our best to make it as clear as possible. Allah Ta'ala accept it. Allah Ta'ala put it onto our scale of hasanat, the mizan of hasanat. Allah Ta'ala make it a means of our success, our marhumin, etc., etc. Okay, Alhamdulillah. Now we're going to start Babul Hayri wal Istihadati, the chapter with regards to the menstrual cycle. Well, istihada, and means istihada actually refer to blood that which is not a menstrual cycle. The Shariat has given a definition for menstrual cycle, right? So that which does not fit the menstrual cycle, where a woman will continue to read a salat as normal, that is istihada. So when you go to the mufti and you tell the mufti, look here, I bled this day and I bled that day and I bled from this time and I bled to that time, you tell you this is hayd. So what does it mean? You tell you hayd that this time you shouldn't have read salat if you did read salat, or your hayd is from this time and this time, so you are ma'af of salat. But if you tell you this is istihada, then he means that this time here, you are not excused from the Shariat. You're supposed to have read your salah in this time. And if you never read your salat in this time here, you must make your qaza in this time, right? So the mufti, when you come to him with your fatwa, and or after you come to when you come to him with your istifta, istifta means your question, right? The fatwa is the answer, and istifta is the question, he'll tell you this is hayd and he'll tell you this is istihada. So hayd is the time you have been excused from praying, the time you have been excused from reading your salah, that is the hayd. And istihada is just a flow which is not considered to be hayd. So in simple words, it is like a breaker of wudu occurring from any other part of your body. Maybe you're bleeding from your toe, or you're bleeding from your nose, or you're bleeding from your tongue, or you're bleeding from your cheek, or you're bleeding from your nose. The normal laws there of ma'zur will take place. If you bleed for a whole salat time where you don't even get 5 minutes to read, then you'll be considered a ma'zura. So this is very important. Many of the ladies also they confuse this. They think if you got istihada, you necessarily a ma'zura. Look, man, are you with me? They think if you got istihada, you necessarily a ma'zura. No, you can be having istihada, but you're not a ma'zura. Just simple to explain this here. You maybe you finish bleed your 10 days already, right? So you still got some discharge coming. But discharge only comes once or twice a day after your 10 days because according to Hadith Madhab, maximum bleeding is 10 days, right? So after 10 days, you're bleeding randomly, not you. I mean, inshallah, you don't bleed, but a lady is bleeding, right? So now she's bleeding once or twice. So that is istihada because it's not hayd. But that doesn't necessarily mean she's a ma'zura. So you can be a mustahada, but you're not a ma'zura. So for you to be a ma'zura, you must bleed the whole salat time. Simple example, say for instance, Zohr Asr time comes in. Okay, Zohr time comes in at 12 o'clock and it goes out at 3 o'clock, which is 5 hours, 4 hours. You must, for the whole 4 hours, you must bleed every 5 minutes. And then when you bleed that, and then if you bleed every 5 minutes, where there was not enough time to make wudu and enough time to make salah, now you qualify. Now this mustahada woman, she will qualify as a ma'zura. Now even in the next salah, even if she bleed one time from her front organ, whatever, she's still a ma'zura, so she can just go ahead and read her salah, even if she bleeds or she gets any color discharge, whatever. So I promise you, many ladies, they must understand this. They think any blood that they get after their haid, which is istihada, naturally they become a ma'zura. No. And a lot of times also in the kutub of fiqh, ulama, they use the word istihada for ma'zura. But technically speaking, it is different. You have to understand it, right? So if you remember, here the author previously we discussed all the types of ahdath. If you go before the Masah, we feel like, those things that break your wudu, those things that break your ghusl. And we discuss those things which are kathir al-wuqu, those things that happen very, very often. And then we discussed how to remove them through tayammum and through Masah, etc. Now we're going to discuss the ahdath, the breakers of wudu, which is qaleel al-wuqu. It happens more, what's the opposite of randomly? Not random. Huh? No, not opposite of random. What's the opposite of random? Very rarely. Yeah, it's not so common. It's rarely. So now we're going to discuss. So the hayd is qaleel al-wuqu. Like how a person goes several times a day to toilet. You pass number one, you pass number two. It's kathir al-wuqu. So that has been done. Alhamdulillah, there's water on the breach. Now we're going to discuss qaleel al-wuqu. So this is also from Sahib Inaya, that is also one of the main sharah or commentaries of Hidayah. He also adds, he puts Hayd and Nifas, etc. on the chapter of Ahdath, Nawaqidul Wudu, those things which break wudu. So we can say, so if we say this is part of Babul Ahdath, then this is an extension of those things which break the wudu. And then obviously we know nifas, which we in English we term as postnatal bleeding, or I think in other words say lochia, Lochia. It is very similar to hayd in that it's a blood that comes out from the front organ of a lady, etc. And obviously it is even lesser occurring than the hayd. Hayd is something which happens every month, and this is something which happens only after childbirth. So it is even more hair. That's why it is brought after hayd. You understood that? So, like we know, every word it has just a translation, and then in Shariat it has a specific meaning. If we speak about the literal translation, just a pure, simple translation of the word hayd, it means adamul khariju, blood that comes out of the body, and a woman in particular. But in Shariat, in fiqh, when we speak about hayd, what do we mean? وَدَمٌ يَنْفُضُهُ رَحِمُ الْمَرْأَةِ السَّلِيمَةُ عَنِ الدَّاءِ وَالصِّغْرِ. It is that few conditions here. That blood that comes out from the womb of a woman, but that womb must be safe from illness and from young age. Why do we mean from illness? Because if a woman bleeds continuously due to some illness in her womb, whatever, then that is not hayd. That is not hayd. And if she's very young, still she's like under 9 years of age, all of these details will come, then that is also not hayd, right? So it must be within a certain time frame, and also it must also be that it is not due to some type of illness, then it is hayd. So some of the conditions تقدم نساب الطهر حقيقة أو حكما, right? In order for blood to be considered hayd, a woman must have passed a clean period before that. Remember, just remember this principle. I don't want to go into the principles, but to understand this, you have to understand this principle that the thing that separates two bleedings is 15 days. If a woman had a haze now, she had a haze now, and within 15 days she bleed, we will not consider that a new haze. We'll join that up to this current bleeding. Are you with me? So simple examples, a woman had a haze now for 5 days, right? Then 5 days she was clean, right? Then she bled another 5 days. That next 5 days can't be a new haze. Why it can't be a new haze? Because between two haze you must have a tuhar, you must have a clean period, and the minimum clean period according to Hanafi madhab is 15 days. So that's what they're saying. For a bleeding to be a new hayd and to be separated from the previous hayd, you must have a tuhar in between. A tuhar is minimum 15 days. Are you with me? So تقدم نساب الطهر حقيقة. So that is another condition, that in order for a blood to be categorized by hayd, there must be a tuhar of 15 days before it. And hukman, what do you mean hukman? Sometimes a woman is bleeding. Sometimes a woman is bleeding, but that bleeding is not hayd. It's considered istihada. So even though she is bleeding, but it is a tuhar, you understood? So a woman, so although two hayd, listen to this carefully, although two bleeding have to be separated by a tuhar, a clean period, but sometimes she can be bleeding in their tuhar. You understand what I'm saying? A simple example, a woman had full 10 days of hayd, but due to some problem, she was still bleeding in between. So we know for a fact that in the Hanafi madhab, you can't bleed more than 10 days, right? So after 10 days, she was bleeding. So that is a tuhar, because hayd is not more than 10 days. So see, in her tuhar, she was bleeding, but we won't consider that hayd. So it doesn't, so your tuhar, it generally it will be a period where you are physically clean. There's no blood coming out. But it can be possible that a woman is bleeding to her, and we'll say that hukman she is clean. Why? Even though she's physically bleeding, because that is not considered as hayd. And if you remember what we discussed in the beginning, we said anything which is not considered hayd, there is istihada. So she can be having istihada in a tuhar. So yes, for something to be hayd, you must have a period of 15 clean days. Either she's physically clean, that she's not bleeding, or if she is bleeding, but that bleeding is not considered hayd because it is over 10 days already. You understand what I'm saying? Or maybe if she got a habit and she bled more than 10 days, so we revert to a habit, you understood? So the tohar doesn't have to be physically clean. The tohar, she can be bleeding, but that bleeding is not considered to be hayd. Why? Because she already bled more than 10 days. or she already bled more than her normal habit. And when you bleed more than your normal habit, more than 10 days, when you bleed more than your 10 days, you revert to your previous habit, right? I hope that is clear. But if that last part is not so clear, don't worry. It will come clear. Maybe I'll just repeat it. So tomorrow, inshallah, the Friday times are slightly different. We have on Friday Mishkat Sharif at 9 o'clock. Half past 9 is the Hidayah Sharif. And 10 o'clock is the tafsir. That is the times for tomorrow. Let's we stop there. But subhanallah bihamdihi. Subhanakallah wa bihamdika. Nashhadu an la